Holy City Center Radio, it is episode 115, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, April 28th, 2023. The weekend is here. Week has flown by, at least for me. I hope the same is true for you. Regardless, let's all have a good weekend. You know the best way to do that? Go to holycitycenter.com/events, see what is going on in town. And, maybe you're looking for something different to do. There's all sorts of different types of events, everything from food and bev related, dinners, like wine tastings, things like that, to parties, to concerts, to theater, all sorts of things always going on in town. And that is the best place to find some weekend plans. We're going to dive right into it. Not a lot going on in Holy City Sinnerland. So no tales to regale you with today. We're just going to jump right into the news. North Charleston authorities are still looking for answers after dozens of shots rang out during a youth baseball game last year. You all may remember back on April 25th of 2022, children and parents were sent scrambling and ducking for cover as gunfire erupted at a youth baseball game in North Charleston. Police say their investigation into the Pepper Hill Park shooting continues, still, like I mentioned, a year later. The North Charleston Police Department told Live 5 News this week that investigators have put thousands of hours into this investigation. They're keeping their eyes on multiple suspects, but at this time, they say they're missing just one piece. They told Live 5 News that they're looking for that one person in one of these groups that they're looking at who can come forward and tell them who was shooting and who shot first. Police say the incident started when somebody posted on social media that there was going to be a fight at the park. As people showed up and the fight was getting ready to start, the police say that two groups, they saw each other, guns were pulled, and shots were fired. Police also say they've recovered two guns that they believe were used in the shooting and have arrested people that were there that night, but those arrests and those guns that they confiscated happened from events that were unrelated to the incident at Pepper Hill Park. If you have any information about what happened that evening a year ago, please contact the North Charleston Police Department. The decades-long push to bring private school choice to South Carolina cleared a big hurdle this past week when the House passed a bill on Wednesday that subsidizes education expenses for parents who pull their children out of local public schools. We've talked about this before, but as a refresher, back in January, the Senate passed Bill S39. And as I just mentioned, now the House has passed it. And what this would do is give qualifying families a $6,000 voucher that they can use at private schools or public schools outside of their zone districts and for a variety of other educational expenses. People who supported this private school choice program say that the vouchers provide much needed choice to families who can't afford alternative education options that may better suit their children for whatever reason. Meanwhile, opponents claim that this is illegally diverting taxpayer dollars to unaccountable private schools and will ultimately hurt public education. We'll talk a little bit more about why opponents say it's illegal. So last year, when each chamber passed its own version of what is called the ESA legislation, they then failed to reach a compromise bill. The House this year adopted the Senate's bill by a vote of 79 to 35 without any changes. So a much different result this year than last year. Another big change is debate on the bill took up 2 full weeks in the Senate earlier this year, but it only lasted for an afternoon here in the lower chamber of the House chamber, that is, after Republicans voted to limit discussion of the bill. So the next step, of course, now heads to the governor's desk for his signature. Governor Henry McMaster has been a champion of this private school choice for a while. He has long supported ESA legislation and even allocated $25 million in his executive budget that would establish an education scholarship trust fund in anticipation of this bill being passed. Once signed into law, the ESA bill is likely to face some legal challenges from those opponents I mentioned, who said that this violates the South Carolina Constitution's prohibition on public money being spent on private educational institutions. South Carolina's ESA program would start small, if assuming it doesn't hit any of these legal challenges. It will enroll a maximum of 5,000 of the state's most economically disadvantaged students in the 2024-25 school year before gradually growing in size and scope. By the 2026-27 school year, families making up to four times the federal poverty level, which right now is $120,000 for a family of four, would qualify for vouchers, and as many as 15,000 would actually receive them. Participating students must have attended public school during the prior year, unless, of course, they're entering kindergarten. Their families would be able to spend ESA money on a wide range of educational expenses, whether that's tuition, tutoring, transportation, or technology. The state itself would spend up to $30 million on vouchers in the program's first year, not including like the initial startup costs to get the program running. They would also spend up to $90 million annually on the full implementation. This information is coming to an analysis that was done by the State Department of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. So it appears school choice is on its way. Governor's expected to sign it. There is expected to be some challenges, so it's likely going to be held up in court for some amount of time. So, not quite over the finish line there, but getting closer and closer. Well, it's been a while since we've talked about one of South Carolina's most infamous residents. Guess it's about that time again. That's right. Alec Murdaugh is back in the news. The convicted double murderer has been charged with failing to pay over $130,000 in taxes on the millions of dollars that he is accused of stealing. This marks the second time in less than a year that this former attorney has been charged with tax crimes for failing to report or pay taxes on the millions he allegedly stole from his clients and the law firm his family founded over 100 years ago. An indictment that was filed Thursday in Hampton County accuses Murdaugh of failing to pay taxes on more than $2 million in income earned through what the indictment says is illegal acts. In total, Murdaugh has now been charged with failing to pay $619,000 in state tax on a total of over $9 million in illegally obtained income. The indictment, which was announced on Tuesday, describes how Murdaugh willfully did not file a tax return in order to evade the assessment. This, despite previously filing income tax returns and earning sufficient income to be required to file a return, according to the indictment. Moving on to the world of sports, unfortunately, the South Carolina Stingrays lost to the Florida Everblades by a final score of 4-3. This happened in overtime Wednesday night at Hertz Arena in Florida. With the win, the Everblades have taken a 2-1 series lead. This is a best of 7 series. So, when is game 4 of this opening round of the Kelly Cup playoffs? Well, it is going to be today. This one is still in Florida, so unfortunately, unless you're planning on traveling there, you're not going to be able to see it in person. The puck drop is set for 7:30 p.m. Game 5 will also be held in Florida. Games 6 and 7, if necessary, will be back here in North Charleston. So that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to help out, be sure to rate, review, like, subscribe, whatever you can do on the streaming platform you are currently listening to the show on. Please do that. It helps out a lot. You can also go to patreon.com/Holy City Center, where you can subscribe to one of the tiers. Gives you some access to discount codes, sometimes merch, sometimes news and information that I don't share on my normal platforms. And sometimes that information is shared later, but you'll get early access. So be sure to check out that. You can also go to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up some merchandise. And as always, totally understand not everyone wants Holy City Center merchandise. I don't know why you wouldn't, or don't you just don't have the money to spend, and that's totally fine. There's so many free ways to help out. Like I mentioned before, reviewing the podcast, sharing it with people. If you follow me on any social media accounts, likes, retweets, comments, all that good stuff always helps spread whatever posts I have, so that other people in the community can see it and maybe they want to be a part of the Holy City Center community. So thank you for all of you for listening, and to all of you who have done those things for me in the past and continue to do it. I greatly appreciate it. A huge thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins, who is with LMC Soundsystem and produces every single episode of this show. And also a big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode as well. Have a great weekend. Remember, holycitycenter.com/events to find out what is going on in town this weekend and also going forward as well. Start planning ahead. Be sure to check that out. Whatever you end up doing, be safe and have fun this weekend. Can't wait to talk to you all on Monday. I'm not wishing away the weekend or anything, but I do enjoy getting on the mic and sharing news with y'all. So until Monday, good night and good luck.